Well, you know, this tactic is so dirty, it actually reminds me of my ex. Let's begin. The Scottish National Party, the SNP, is up to its old tricks. And this time they've got a cunning plan that's bound to raise an eyebrow or two. You see, they've decided to put the Scottish independence on the ballot paper at next year's general election. But here's the thing, they're not going to do the good old-fashioned referendum. No, they're going for something far more devious, winning a majority of Westminster seats north of the border to kickstart negotiations on IndyRef 2. It's like playing a game of chess where the SNP just moved their queen in for a sneaky checkmate, isn't it? And during a 2-hour debate at the SNP conference in Aberdeen, members gave their blessing to this heavily amended motion. And the approved text is a masterpiece of political wordplay, isn't it? Because it says that the SNP will add independence for Scotland alongside its name and logo on the ballot paper to make it clear beyond doubt that this is their primary purpose at the election. Let's face it, it's as clear as day, isn't it? It's like they're writing "this is a burger" on the wrapping of a hamburger. But the real plot twist comes if the SNP manages to bag 29 more of Scotland's 59 Westminster seats. Holyrood ministers can begin immediate negotiations with the UK government to give democratic effect to Scotland becoming an independent country. But it gets even cheekier than that because the party's manifesto for the upcoming election is expected to scream "Vote SNP for Scotland to become an independent country" right on the first page. And of course you might wonder why they're going through all this instead of holding another good old-fashioned referendum. Well, I'm guessing they probably don't want to lose again, or risk losing it, because if they do, then surely wouldn't that wipe out the SNP overall, because that is their main function, isn't it? Well, in my opinion anyway, but to be honest, this all started after the UK Supreme Court ruled almost a year ago that Holyrood can't have IndyRef 2 without Westminster's permission. So the SNP members seem to say, fine, we won't treat the general election as a de facto referendum by seeking 50.1% of the overall vote. Instead, we're going for the more achievable, but still tricky option of getting the majority of seats, which personally I think they will probably do in Scotland. But anyway, the article says that Mr Youssef, who has faced a busy first 6 months as SNP leader, also made a plea to his party to unite behind the newly agreed strategy and move on from talking about process to talking about policy, by saying, after today, when we're democratically decided as a party together on our way forward, let us unite, for it is our unity and greater strength as a party, he said. MP Tommy Shepherd meanwhile said only a referendum like one held in 2014 could bring about independence, and the only way to keep alive the possibility of this happening was by winning the election next year. If we lose that election, then that journey stops. The debate will be closed down and it will be taken off the table, so we cannot afford to lose that election, he added. Well, you know, it seems that Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has grabbed the mic and he's got a message that's about as exciting as a rollercoaster ride through taxland. I mean, picture this. Red tape and waste in the UK's public services are running amok, apparently, and Hunt is not having any of it. He's not just concerned, he's costs are going up concerned. He's apparently on a mission to free up time and resources so that the fine folks, paid by the taxpayer, can focus on what really matters, like solving problems, treating patients, teaching kids. And he's apparently crystal clear that low taxes in the long run depend on fixing up public services. But the thing is, Hunt has donned his Captain Obvious cape here, hasn't he? And declared that Britain needs a resilient economy, especially in these turbulent times of global instability. And he's not satisfied with falling inflation and outperforming forecasts. He wants more. It's like he's trying to turn the UK into the Rocky Balboa of economies, ready to take on the economic punches. I personally just hope that his sums are more better than Diane Abbott's, and that this will work. He's apparently throwing some shade too by warning about wasteful spending in public services. Imagine him in a boxing ring pointing out the unnecessary expenses and yelling, "You're out!" And his plan apparently starts with simplifying the tax system. Hunt even takes a jab at HMRC, noting that they send and receive more than 150 million letters and forms each year, many of which people don't even want. But apparently here comes the exciting part. He's eyeing up the digital revolution. The plan is to move more of HMRC's services online, and this could apparently save millions of pounds and free up thousands of hours. It's as if he's telling us that the future is online, and it's not just for cat videos or online shopping. But the thing is, unfortunately in this day and age, not everyone is online, Jeremy. So hopefully you're thought of that. He also wants to remind us about the magic of new technology in healthcare. He mentions that the new tech has already halved the time it takes to treat stroke victims, apparently, tripling their chances of living independently afterwards. But hold on, because he isn't done yet. He's keen, apparently, to see these efficiency gains ripple across the public sector, and says with global instability and uncertainty we need to make sure that Britain's economy is resilient. But in a twist of fate, Hunt also mentions that most forecasters predicted a recession this year, but it didn't happen. Britain, it turns out, had the fastest recovery from the pandemic of any major European country. So have that, Ramonas, because let's face it, it's kind of like finding out that you're the Usain Bolt of economic comebacks. He is also insisting that more be done, and apparently he's on a mission to get inflation down and growth up. Kind of like a Liz Truss sort of strategy, which, let's face it, if I remember rightly, he didn't want to do back then, did he? But basically, in a nutshell, Hunt wants to make sure that the cost of public service is justifiable and keep taxes down in the long run. Although that may not be easy, because it's kind of like saying we want our cake and we want to eat it as well. But Chief Secretary to the Treasury, John Glenn, is leading a public sector productivity review. They're hoping to save up to £1 billion by capping the civil servant headcount, which basically is like finding a hidden treasure chest at the end of a long and winding bureaucratic maze, isn't it? And personally, I think there's too many civil servants as it is, so hopefully they'll at least be able to sort that out. But anyway, the article says that HMRC apparently sent around 136 million items in the post in 2022 to 2023 and received 22 million. Mr Hunt argues that just as so many of us use online banking, the convenience of online tax services needs to catch up. And he is adamant that this is not about cutting the civil service. Public sector reform doesn't mean making cuts, he said. It means doing more with what we have and delivering a better deal for taxpayers and service users. And HMRC will aim to reduce paper-based and advisor-led phone communications by 30% over the next 2 years. And his push for reform comes as it is reported that HMRC customer service staff will work fewer hours in quieter times and more busier periods such as the tax return season. Well, hold on to your hats, boys and girls, because we're about to dive headfirst into the wild and wacky world of the woke council, where the phrase work takes a whole new meaning. The Lib Dem-run South Cambridgeshire District Council has unleashed a plan that's nothing short of a taxpayer-funded sitcom. They've introduced a 4-day work week, but on full pay, which if anything is kind of like winning the lottery, isn't it? But instead of a giant cheque, you just get an extra day off work each week at our expense. And obviously opponents of this grand experiment are claiming that it comes at a rather hefty price tag, to the tune of £3.3 million a year. Yes, you heard that right, 3.3 million smackers for the pleasure of having your employees not show up for work. It's almost as if they've decided to pay folks for having a daily sleep, or turning the whole work-life balance thing into a twisted comedy. But Heather Williams, the leader of the Conservative opposition, who hopefully has a few more brain cells, is shaking her head in disbelief, exclaiming the 4-day week is something that affects every single one of our residents. It means that 3.3 million will be spent in 12 months on salary for hours not worked. Obviously that means that taxpayer money just vanishes into thin air, doesn't it? And therefore, if anything, it's kind of like a horrible magic trick, but instead of a rabbit appearing from a hat, it's your hard-earned cash disappearing into a bureaucratic abyss. And speaking of magic, the reduced work week has taken its toll on services, like waste collection, for example. It's as if the dustman men are saying, sorry, we're on a 4-day vacation, while costing taxpayers more. Mr Richard Williams, another Tory councillor, chimes in, imploring the council to abandon this ridiculous and expensive trial. Maybe, who knows, with presumably the council's collective brain cell, they may think that order and takeaway is best because it will save you money on the groceries. Clever, isn't they? If they do think that, that is. But the thing is, there's apparently a twist, because the Lib Dem leader Bridget Smith claims that this experiment has allowed them to fill staff vacancies and save a cool £760,000 in agency fees. Well, how about hiring more staff instead? To cover holidays and sickness. Wouldn't that be a better idea than paying a dear agency? But obviously I could be wrong. This is almost as if she's saying, sure, we might be paying people for not working, but look at the agency fees we're not paying. But the grand finale in this circus act is where the government steps in, apparently with a raised eyebrow, and demands that this trial be put to rest, and about time too. But anyway, the article says that Richard Williams said you really do need to abandon this ridiculous and expensive trial. The council began the experiment in January, and Lib Dem leader Bridget Smith said that it led to being able to fill staff vacancies, saving $760,000 in agency fees. But the government said the council had missed the performance targets and demanded it end the trial. And the council was asked for comment. Well, in my opinion, I personally think that 4-day week idea is a bit of an insult to us all if they think we should pay for it. And speaking of insults, it looks like in this video that's exactly what Aldi has done to basically every single one of its customers, in my opinion. And it'll probably hit them hard.